parts of America as we live stream the beginning Hebrew class. Let me explain a little bit about what we're doing today. As is my wont, I'm literally just going to throw the students in the deep end and see how they cope. Okay? They're used to it, and I sometimes laugh at some of their mistakes, but it's an encouraging laugh sometimes. So we're going to be reading a passage from Jeremiah 33. They had no idea that this is the passage I was going to ask them to do, and there are forms of verbs in there which they haven't learnt yet, but I also asked them to work through it. And we'll discuss matters beyond language in terms of interpreting the text. So let's dive in. We're in Jeremiah 33. We're going to be starting at verse 14. Okay, and we will initially read through, let's read all the way through to 22, the end of 22, and let's take one verse each, read, and we'll read around. Okay, Chase, you'll start, then Kyla, then Bryce, until we get to the end of that passage. Okay, so Chase, off you go.
Hine yamim ba'im ne'um Adonai v'haki moti et hadavar hatov asher dibarti el Beit Israel ve'al Beit Yehuda.
Good.
Hayamim hahem uva'et ha'him azmiach
Atzmiach.
Atzmiach leDavid emach
Semach.
Semach tzedakah va'asa mishpat utzdaka ba'aretz.
Good.
Bayamim hahem tivasha Yehuda Virushalem
Yerushalayim.
Tishkon lavetach v'zeh asher yikra la Adonai sidkenu.
Good.
Ki ho amar Adonai lo yishkaret le David ish Yoshev al kisei Beit Israel.
Yeah, there's no negation the bet, so Beit Israel. Kyla.
V'lakohanim halviyim lo yikaret ish milpanai ma'ale ola umaktir mincha v'oseh zevach kol hayamim.
Okay, it was me lifanai. There's no negation the pay. You put one in, but it's good. Bryce.
Vayehi devar Adonai el Yirmeyahu lemor.
That was too short. Carry on to the next one. Sorry.
Kol mar Adonai im taferu et bariti hayom va'et bariti halayela ulavilti eyot yomam valayla
Ba'itam, yeah.
Gam biriti tufar et David avdi mihyot lo bay or vain ben molech al kiso ve'et halviyim hakohanim mesharta.
Shatai, yeah. Kyla.
Asher lo yis ספר צבא השמיים ולא ימד כל הים כן ארבה את זרע דוד עבדי ואת הלוויים משרתי אותי.
Good. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Rather than grilling you for 20 minutes on all the forms, I'll just ask you as we go through and translate and discuss it. I'll do it that way rather than, because no one wants to listen to people pass verbs for any length of time. So you get off that one. So let's go back to verse 13. Let's have a go at translating. Remember, some of the vocab you don't know, some of the verb forms are tricky, you haven't studied yet, but I think we can work through it quite well. So I think we're up to Bryce, aren't we, in going round. So Bryce, start verse 14, have a go at translating, and then we'll discuss it.
Behold, days coming, days are coming.
Days, yeah, the days, and you'd probably for a smooth translation, days are coming generally, or the days are coming. You can, but days are coming. Ne'om Adonai.
Remember Ne'um.
Ne'om, Chase, do you know?
Ne'um. Oh, the word of Lord, the oracle of the Lord.
Oracle of the Lord, yeah. And we often translate it as declares the Lord, yeah. In prophetic utterances, yeah. Hakimoti, great verb form. Can you pass it, Bryce? Can you remember? It's weak.
Okay.
What person is it?
Looks like first common singular.
First common singular, good.
So,
What binyan? The hay gives it away.
Hifil.
Hifil, so the root is,
Com.
yeah, good. And it's faculty, yeah.
I will cause to rise, make rise.
Okay, so that would be a first sort of idea. You know the root, you know its lexical meaning, you know hifil is causative. But what's the direct object?
The good word.
The good word, yeah. So I'm going to do something to the good word, Asher debati el Beit Yisrael al Beit Yehuda. So finish the sentence, so we'll come back and decide how we best translate the verb.
Okay. Which I have spoken to the house of Israel and all the house of Judah.
Yeah, so, and you have two different prepositions, el and al. So I've spoken concerning the house of Israel and concerning the house of Judah may be a good way of doing it. So the direct object of the verb that we're waiting to translate is the good word which God has spoken or God promised, perhaps would be a good translation. So what is he going to do to that word?
Fulfill it.
He's going to fulfill it. Yeah, so the hifil of kum in these contexts, whether it's the word or if it's a covenant, has the meaning of fulfill. It can also have the, in other contexts, the meaning of establish as well. So good. So days are coming, declares the Lord, that I will fulfill the word, the good word which I promised concerning the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Good. Chase, 15.
In these days.
Those days.
Those days.
What would it have been if it was these days?
Ha'ele.
Ha'ele, yeah.
In those days.
Ba'et hahi.
Ahi. Is it him?
So remember hahi is if it had been in those days, it would have been bayamim ha'ele and ba'et ha zot. at this time, but it's not in this time. It's in those days and at that time.
Okay. And in that time. Oh, okay. Yeah, it means time. In that time,
So Atzmiach LeDavid Tzemek Tzedakah. Pass Atzmiach for me.
it's Yictol, first common singular, Hifil,
Hifil. Good.
and I will
Tzemach is a root you haven't come across yet.
that we have. Or
You haven't come across yet, no. But it's he's going to do something for who?
David.
David, what's he going to do? He's going to cause something. What the tzemach tzedakah is the
Accusers.
yeah tzedakah from tzedek tzedakah.
Drawing a blank. Righteousness.
Righteous, yes.
Back to the first term.
Yeah, back first term is a long time ago, but that's how it works. So tzemech and tzamich is to. A tzemech is a sprout or a plant. Tzmiach is to cause to sprout, to cause to grow. So I will cause to grow for David a tzemech tzedakah, a righteous branch, a righteous sprout. Yeah, plant.
And Asa, and it will make from Mishpat, from
Mish,
the
note.
Shaphat, keep to guard.
So no, you can't. Why can't it be min? Why can't that mem be min?
Because there's no dagesh.
Yeah. So it's it's a performative, making the root shafa into a noun. Mishpat, meaning
Like participle.
not in this case, no. Mishpat means kaila.
Is it a covering?
No, it's not a covering.
A judgment?
Judgment. Yeah, he will. For asa mishpat, he will execute justice or judgment. Who will? Who's the subject?
The branch, the righteous branch.
The righteous branch. Yeah.
Or David. Yeah, the righteous branch will execute judgment
Utzedakah ba'aretz.
and righteousness in the land.
And righteousness in the land. Yes. Good. Okay. Do the next verse, then we're going to come back and discuss it in relationship to another passage and some of the text critical stuff, because this is the fun part of the passage. Kyla, next verse though.
In those days.
Okay, this verb, this is fun. Tivashah, weak root, but I reckon you can logically work through it and tell me what the binyan is.
Is it? It's nifal.
Nifal, good.
And it's second masculine singular.
Or
Third feminine singular.
okay, here it's Yehuda who's going to be Tivashah, so it's third feminine singular. What's the root?
I would think Basha. That's strange.
That's strange. Yeah, so you haven't done the weak roots in these binyan, but remember we've talked about pei yod root. So the root is yashar. Okay, so remember with pei yod you have, so here you have yashar, but that historically is really a pei vav, and that vav reappears in the hifil and in the nifal. You have a root like yatav, and that is historically a pei yod, and so the yod is retained in the Hifil. Okay, and things. So historically, you have two groups which now are grouped under Pei Yod, but they were historically Pei Yod, Pei Vav. And again, we'll be covering that later on this term. So, what does Ruach Yasha mean? Yeshua.
Save.
Save, yeah. Okay, so in those days, Tivasha Yehuda.
Judah will save.
Judah
will be saved.
Thank you.
And Jerusalem.
Jerusalem is the subject of the next verb, Tishkon Lavetach.
And Jerusalem will.
You haven't come across this root yet. Will dwell.
And Jerusalem will dwell.
Lavetach. Okay, so here's a nice structure. It's a nice little parallel section, isn't it? You have Tivasha Yehuda v'Yerushalayim Tishkon Lavetach. So Jerusalem and Judah are clearly parallel. Judah will be saved. Jerusalem shall dwell Lavetach. That's going to be parallel to be saved, or be related to being saved. So you could, if you didn't know the vocabulary item, you could use the structure of the verse to make an educated guess. So make an educated guess.
Will dwell in the.
Do it as an adverb, let's say.
Peacefully.
Peacefully, that would make sense. It's not right, but it would make sense. It would dwell. Chase.
Safely? I don't know.
Pardon?
Securely?
Securely, safely. So the root there is can be for to be secure, to trust, to be things. So we'll dwell securely. Keep going.
And this which he will call for you.
For you.
To you.
La. Look at it.
Oh. To it.
To it or to her, yes. It's a third feminine singular.
The Lord. Oh.
Possessive suffix is which one? Lord.
First common plural.
Yeah, the Lord our.
Oh, the Lord our righteousness.
The Lord our righteousness. Good. So Judah's going to be saved. Jerusalem shall dwell securely, and this is what literally he will call her, the Lord our righteousness. A lot of translations say this is what she will be called, the Lord our righteousness, thinking that the subject of call is perhaps not specified, and therefore it makes more sense to turn it into a passive in English, and she shall be called the Lord our righteousness. But we'll come back and discuss that in a minute. But now, if you look in the apparatus of the BHS, there's all, you've got lots of footnotes suggesting some variety, and the reason there's that variety is because we have a parallel passage in Jeremiah. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go back to Jeremiah 23. Okay, can you see that? And starting at verse 5 here. הנה ימים באים נאום אדוני והקימותי לדוד צמח צדיק ומלאך מלך והשכיל ועשה משפט וצדקה בארץ בימיו תיוושע יהודה וישראל ישכון לבטח וזה שמו אשר יקראו אדוני צדקנו. Okay, so a very similar passage between the one you just read in Jeremiah 33 and Jeremiah 23. Have a quick look through. What are the differences? Compare and contrast. So, Hine Yamim Ba'im Na'um Adonai V'Hakemoti LeDavid Tzemach Tzadik. What's the difference there?
It's a different word.
Yeah.
Or no, it's a different form of the word.
It's a different form. Here you have an adjective rather than a righteous branch rather than a branch of righteousness. The meaning is no different, but it's a different form. Good.
Yeah, which I never understand.
And then what do you have?
A different verb.
Yeah, you have this clause which doesn't reappear in Jeremiah 33. So in Jeremiah 23, days are coming, declares the Lord, and I will raise up for David a righteous branch, and a king shall rule, and he will be prosperous, he will be successful, or even wise in some sense. And then v'asa mishpat utzedakah ba'aretz. But Jeremiah 33 had Hakamoti et hadavar hatov asher dabarti al Beit Yisrael v'al Beit Yehuda b'yamim hahem u'v'bet et hahi atzmiach LaDavid. So the Hakamoti is repeated, but it's repeated in relationship to David as opposed to the good word that God had already promised. And then in Jeremiah 33, I will atzmiach tzemech tzedakah. So there are some differences there. Now go on to the next verse 6, 23:6. In parallel with verse 16. What's the first difference?
In his day versus in the days.
Yeah, so you have a very specific, in his days, the days of the Tzemek Tzadik, who's going to be ruling and executing justice and righteousness. In Jeremiah, it's in those days.
Yeah.
So that's very specific. Next difference.
Different Ishkon versus Tishkon.
Okay, yes. And what else but before that, when Kyla was doing it, we talked about the parallel thing. You had Yehuda, and in Jeremiah 33, it was Yehuda and Yerushalayim, Judah and Jerusalem. Here it's Yehuda v'Yisrael, and Israel, which would explain the Yishkon rather than the Tishkon, just because. But they're Laveta, which else great. And what else? What's the next difference? This is the key difference.
V'zeh Shemo.
V'zeh Shemo, this is his name. In Jeremiah 33, it's just, and this. Some versions insert Hashem or Shema, her name, into Jeremiah 33, probably as a result of this parallel. Okay. And then what? Asher Yikro Adonai Tzidkenu.
And he shall be called the Lord our righteousness.
Okay, so Jeremiah 23, you have the raising up of the righteous branch who's going to rule, who's going to execute justice and righteousness, and his name is the Lord our righteousness. Okay. While we're there in Jeremiah 23, let me just point out a couple of things just so you notice them. This is going back to grammar a little bit before we get back to the meaning. V'zei shmo, I've highlighted that for you there. Notice the dagesh in the sheen. So when zay has a makef, the letter, first letter of the word following is going to have a dagesh forte in there. Okay, you didn't learn that when we had the zay zot and ele, but that happens. And here, this form is asher yikra o. That is a very unusual form. Okay, and some have suggested. Let me clear. There's all sorts of. If we're going to say, and this is what he will be called, you'd have expected Yikra'ehu. That would have been the more common Yikra'ehu. But we have Yikro. So some have suggested, if, before the vowels are placed, you just have the consonants. Okay, you see that. What would you normally read it as? Yikra'u. Yeah, you would have looked at that and gone, oh, that's the third common plural in the yiktol, Yikra'u. So this is the name in which they will call him. And so some have suggested it would have been Yikra'u who, and this is that they will call him. So there's some text critical issues with that, just so you're aware of them. But the striking thing is, in Jeremiah 23, it's the righteous branch who has the name, the Lord our righteousness, Adonai Tzidkenu. In Jeremiah 33, which we'll stop sharing the screen now, which you have in front of you, it is Jerusalem that is called. And when you look down at the apparatus, you see some of the changes that the versions make. Instead of Le David Tzemek Tzedakah, you have Greek, Old Latin, Theodotion having the equivalent of Tzaddik. Okay, so the name Tzemek Tzedakah is, in earlier versions, Tzemek Tzaddik. Some manuscripts add the V'malach Melech V'Heskil from 23:5. And then you have, certainly in the Syriac version, having, rather than in Jerusalem being called the Lord our righteousness, in the Peshitta, the righteous branch is called it, according to the apparatus. So the fact you have this famous messianic passage in Jeremiah 23, 10 chapters or so later, you have that same language being used, but referring to Jerusalem. But within that, you can see how that famous passage is seemingly exerting influence within the scribal tradition of and the textual tradition of the Masoretic text in places, and then in the versions, some are even seemingly, probably trying to harmonize the two. So you have a text which is obviously messianic in Jeremiah 23, and that the name of the Messiah is the Lord our righteousness, the Tetragrammaton. That name is given to this messianic king, the Lord our righteousness, and here it's given to Jerusalem. It's not Hebrew, but that's an interesting thing we have to work with. We're familiar with the idea of the Messiah being termed the Lord our righteousness. The idea of Jerusalem being termed that is something we're not necessarily familiar with. Now, if we go back to 16, I wonder if this is one way of looking at it. Bayamim hahem, in those days, Tivasha Yehuda, Judah will be saved. Verushalayim tishkon lavetach, Jerusalem will dwell securely. V'zeh asher yikra lah Adonai tzidkenu. So the subject of the verb yikra, if we're to is unclear, but it could be God, because he's the subject of the raising of the righteous branch, or the Lord, or it could be the righteous branch, because he's a subject of asa, and he's a subject, certainly in the other versions of malak, of to reign and to act wisely and to be prosperous, haskil. So the righteous branch, the Lord has made to sprout this righteous branch for David, this ruler, and he executes justice and righteousness in the earth. And in those days, as a result of that exercise of justice, Judah is saved, Jerusalem dwells securely, and this is the name by which he calls her, Jerusalem, the Lord our righteousness, which is his name. And Jerusalem gets to take on his name in the after he is Judah and Jerusalem saved and delivered her.
You couldn't have Adonai here be the subject of Yikra, La, and then Sidek Kenu be the name. Could it be the Lord calls her our righteousness? That would make sense.
It wouldn't make sense. Yeah, I mean it.
And we would expect the subject to be between La and the verb.
That's not so problematic, but certainly the way the Masoretes have put the accents in, that is not how it is. Adonai is, although there is that part, the partition between Adonai and Tzidkenu, which is a very, very small disjunctive accent. It's there is a conjunctive accent under Adonai, which is bringing it together with Tzidkenu in the Masoretic reading, and I think that's the most straightforward reading of the text, because just calling Jerusalem Tzidkenu, our righteousness, makes a little bit less sense, and especially saying Adonai Tzidkenu is.
I was just wondering. Yes,
Yeah.
so the accent is telling you that.
Yeah, the accent is, that's how it's being read. And theologically, Jerusalem and Judah who is saved by the righteous branch who is called the Lord our righteousness, taking on that very name would not be an uncommon thing. That's theologically very sound. It's a wonderful truth. Okay, let's carry on with the Hebrew before we get distracted too much more. Verse 17, and I've got no idea where we are in the go-round. I think it's Bryce, isn't it? Or is it, yes?
Sure.
Sure.
Sure, I don't remember that.
You don't remember either. Kyla's nodding very confidently, which either means she thinks,
Definitely Bryce.
yeah, it must be Bryce. It must be Bryce. Gives me more time.
We're at 17, right?
We're at 17, yeah.
Okay. For thus says the Lord.
Lo yikaret. Pass yikaret for me.
Yiktol, third masculine singular from Krat.
And what binyan?
Is that Hifil? No. I don't remember.
Chase, Kyla.
The Nifal?
Nifal, yeah. The dagesh in the kaf and the vowel pattern yika is classic nifal. Yeah. Okay.
So, thus says the Lord,
What is karat?
Kara. The le in front of David is kind of throwing me off.
Okay.
I would think it'd be something like David will not be cut off, but
It's for David. And ish yoshev al kisei beit Yisrael v'lo yikaret.
okay. So a man dwelling on the throne of the house of Israel will not be cut off for David.
For David, yeah. Dwelling on the throne feels
Sitting on the throne.
sitting on the throne, yeah. Sounds uncomfortable. So a man sitting on the throne of the house of Israel will not be cut off from David. So this is a promise of fulfilling the covenant with David, which we had in 2 Samuel 7, and that means in a number of places, and certainly in the lexicons, tzedek or tzedakah in this context, tzemek tzedakah or tzemek tzadik, has been translated as sort of the legitimate scion of the throne, the legitimate heir. He is some trying to sort of remove or the idea of righteous branch or the righteousness, because they say in this context it's really talking about the legitimate, the descendant of David. But I think there's absolutely no reason to do that. Clearly that's part of the meaning, but we don't want to lose also the idea of righteousness in there, because it's used with intent, particularly because his name is Adonai Tzidkenu. Okay, next verse, Chase.
Let's see. And the infinitive construct in conjunction with the Lamed. Velah.
Like Kohanim Haleviim. Kohanim is a noun, masculine plural noun. Kohanim.
I don't remember.
Kyla?
Priests.
Priests.
Priests. Priests. And from the priests, or for the priests,
Leviim.
the Levites.
Yeah. So this construction is slightly awkward, and concerning or for the priests, the Levites, causes many translations to go with, and regarding so that for the Levitical priests, making it sort of a noun and modifier, which I think is the best way to go, as opposed to two different groups.
And so, from the priests, the Levites, he will not cut off a man from before.
So you made yikaret there into an active rather than a nifal, a passive.
A man will not be cut off
Yeah.
from before him.
No, careful. Lifanai, before me, yeah.
Oops. Ma'ale.
Ma'ale ola. Ma'ale.
Offering, right?
Pardon?
Offering.
Yeah, ola is the offering, yes. Ma'ale is the verb.
From the offering.
So from offering the offering, yeah, from
The offering.
yeah. If you want to keep the repeated word, yeah. Umaktir mincha. This is
And from Kitir.
so maktir mincha is language vocab you haven't done. Mincha is a gift, another type of sacrificial offering. And maktir can be used in the context of incense, but here it's and presenting presenting the offering.
And presenting
An offering.
Is that a participle?
Maktir, yeah.
And the presenting of the offering present. O se Zevach. Zevach is sacrifice, right?
Good.
O se, is it the sacrifice of the sacrifice?
Yeah. So asa is and doing the
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
the masculine singular participle and performing the sacrifice or offering the sacrifice. Yes.
All of the days.
All the days, which if you're going to translate, if you're going to say all the days, it's not going to be a very smooth translation.
Through all of these days.
You
Through
know,
all of it.
in perpetuity, you know, which also isn't going to sell necessarily. Other people go with forever, yeah. So you have the Davidic line is going to continue through this righteous branch, but also here you have the Levitical priest who will not have someone, be lacking in someone to perform those priestly duties. Okay. Kyla, 19 and 20. Because 19 is way too short and easy. You can't get out of it that easily.
And the word of the Lord was or came to Jeremiah, saying, thus says the Lord.
So for the second person,
If you,
what they're just
Yeah, the fun of being online, you can hear all your flatmates talking
I know,
Uh,
I know.
behind you. That's fine. That's just the reality we have to live with sometimes.
Yeah. No, I don't know where it was. If you. Kafir. Is that.
It's Hifil, yeah. But this is the remember we started off with Hakimoti, the Hifil of Kum, which Bryce had, and the object was the Devar, but that could be used for a Brit to fulfill a covenant. Well, this is the opposite, to annul or to break.
Okay. So if you break my covenant, this day,
Just the
day,
and then let's keep going. We'll work out how it functions. For et briti halayla,
and my living covenant.
living.
Never mind. I don't know what I was thinking.
No, neither do I.
And a covenant. The night.
The night. Okay, so we've got We'll come back and work it through in a minute. Ulavilti hayot. Hayot. Pass hayot for me. That's great.
That's a infinitive. Sorry.
Yeah.
Participle.
No.
Haya.
Nah, you go with what you went first.
Okay. Infinitive construct.
Infinitive construct of haya,
Right.
and bilti negates an infinitive construct. Yeah.
And not doing or not not being
Yomam v'layla.
their day.
Yom is by day, daylight, day,
Okay.
day, and you can just say with day. V'layla,
Day and night.
be'itam.
In their time.
In their time. Good. So let's go back. So it's a conditional clause, isn't it? Im. And the yiktol can have the nuance of if you may, if you are able to, if you can, especially in a conditional clause. If you can break my covenant the day, so often with the day, or my covenant the night with the night, so that there is no longer day and night in their time. Then we get the conclusion of it, where Bryce, Gam briti tufa et David avdi.
Then my covenant can be broken with David, my servant.
Mihiot lo ven molech al kiso.
From being to okay, hold on. Being to him, son, ruling over. Then my covenant to David can be broken. David, my servant, can be broken. That there be to him a son ruling on his throne.
Yeah, so that's it. If day and night cease, if my covenant with the day and the night can be broken, then my covenant with David can be broken regarding a son sitting on his throne. Implication being that can't be broken, therefore this can't be broken. V'et haleviim hakohanim, reversing the order that we had previously in verse 18, mishartai.
Oh, this is
Still you.
verse, right?
Yeah.
And with the Levitical priests.
Yeah.
Um,
Mishartai.
I don't remember what that really
It's a plural participle. Misharet would be a masculine singular participle. We haven't had it in any of our the text you're reading within Bible Mesh, and a couple of the unseen have had it. Remember, V'acharei mot Moshe, after the death of Moses, and Joshua bin Nun was described as the Musharet Moshe, the successor, not quite. When Moses was alive, he was still Musharet, Kyla. Assistant, servant. Yeah, Moses' servant. So here you have my covenant with therefore, by implication, the Levitical priests, my servants, and also with the Levitical priests, my servants. In other words, God's promise is God's good word, God's covenant with them is irrevocable in that regard. God will continue to fulfill it. And the means by which that is the case. And this is a striking, I think, the Tzemach Tzedakah is the means, it seems, by which God's covenant in both contexts is being fulfilled. There's no other person who has priestly responsibility that is being raised up. It's just the Tzemach Tzedakah in this context. Okay, we have running out of time very quickly. I'll quickly go through 22 because of time. Asher lo yisaper tzeva hashamayim velo yimod chol hayam ken arbe et zera David avdi et haleviim mishartei oti. That lo yisaper tzeva hashamayim, the host of heaven cannot be counted. Velo yimod chol hayam, the sand on the seashore cannot be numbered, cannot be measured. So I will multiply Arbe et Zera David, the seed of David, my servant Avdi, and the Levites, Mishartei Oti, the ones who serve me. or you could have gone the game with a Mushartai if you had chosen to. And so there's a little bit more detail there. There's the Abrahamic covenant language being applied in the context of the Davidic covenant and relationship to the Levitical priests. So just as this is the case, so it will be for them. Okay, you did a good job. You recognised and past verbs that weak verbs that you haven't learnt. You coped with the vocabulary that you didn't know admirably. Good job. Well done. Look forward to seeing you on Wednesday when we will be doing composition. I'll send out the compositions prior so you can do them, and then we'll go through them once we get online. Okay? Good job. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day.